The largest Lucha Mask collection is on display at my local museum. I repeat, the largest Lucha Mask collection is on display at my local museum. So let's get dressed for the occasion. Christian Cymet, this gentleman right here, brought his Lucha Mask collection, the largest in the world, from Mexico City all the way here for the first time ever in the United States to Brownsville, Texas at the Brownsville Museum of Fine Arts. So come with me as we spend a day at the museum to check out the largest Lucha Libre collection in the world. What's up everybody, and welcome to another episode of Red Card Lucha. I'm actually in the border between USA and Mexico in Brownsville, Texas. Behind me, you'll see the notorious border wall. Lately, there's been a lot of news coming from this part of the world, and unfortunately, it hasn't been good. But we finally have something to look forward to. The beginning of June, Christian Cymet, the owner of the largest collection of Lucha masks, brought his collection all the way from Mexico City. A lot of times living in this part of the world, there can be a negative connotation for being Mexican or being of Mexican descent. When you mention Mexico, sometimes you hear things like cartel, border violence. There are even stigmas of Mexicans being overweight, out of shape, lazy, and it's a real shame because there's so much to be proud of. That's why I started my Lucha mask collection. I tell people all the time, I collect my mask because a luchador mask is something to be proud of and a great representation of Mexico. It symbolizes speed, it symbolizes power, it symbolizes athleticism, it symbolizes the acrobatics. Every mask has a story to tell. Every mask has history. It's much more than just wrestling. Lucha masks are a culture and they represent Mexico in a positive light. So come with me as we head to the Brownsville Museum of Fine Arts to check out the largest collection of luchador masks for the first time here in the United States. As soon as you walk in, you're greeted with this display of La Ola Blanca. La Ola Blanca, which translates to the White Wave, was the tag team championship duo of Dr. Wagner and Angel Blanco. Eventually, they added a third luchador, El Solitario. Oddly enough, El Solitario was a luchador that unmasked Dr. Wagner in their Lucha Apuestas match. Before we continue on with this video, I feel like I need to give the Wagner legacy a little more justice than just that little clip. The Wagner family goes for generations. You have Dr. Wagner, the mask we just saw, which started out in the 50s and 60s. You have Dr. Wagner Jr., who was really popular and was unmasked by Psycho Clown in the 2000s. Currently, you have Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr., who's killing it in Japan with Noah Wrestling. And then you have his younger brother, Galeno del Mal, who's with Gleet Wrestling. Both doing great things in Japan and are very popular in the indie scene here in the United States. Going back to the original Dr. Wagner, he had two sons, Dr. Wagner Jr., and he has another son, Silver King. Now, Silver King is mostly known for his role in Jack Black's motion picture Nacho Libre, where he played the main antagonist, Ramses. Unfortunately, Silver King's life was ended short as he passed away during a live match in London, England, but his legacy continues as his son, Silver King Jr., is continuing the legacy of the mask. Now, before we move on, I just had to show off two of my most prized possessions. I got the Galeno del Mal mask that he used before his current mask. So I have a Galeno del Mal mask. He is the youngest son of Dr. Wagner Jr. And I also have an Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr. mask. This is my second most prized mask out of my entire collection. I really love the Wagner style. I really love their masks. I really love the Aztec styles on it. Pays homage to the indigenous cultures. And the Wagner family are just badasses. So Dr. Wagner, the grandfather, was a bad guy. He was rough in the ring. He had a rough style, but people loved it and people gravitated it. So even though he was considered a rudo, he was a fan favorite, and his kids all continued that legacy. So they're all rudos, quote unquote, but they're so aggressive, they're so fun to watch that fans gravitate towards them, and they're a fan favorite. So hats off to my favorite legacy in all of wrestling, the Wagner family. A few seconds ago, I referenced Lucha de Apuestas. Lucha de Apuestas are bet matches where the loser takes off their mask. I enjoyed this display at the Expo as these were masks that were involved in Lucha de Apuestas. And if it's a Lucha de Apuestas with an unmasked fighter, as you see here, their hair gets shaved off. So there are two major promotions in Mexico. There's a CMLL, which started out as the EMLL, and it's also the longest running wrestling promotion in the entire world. And then there's AAA or AAA. I really enjoyed that there wasn't any favoritism and both promotions were represented equally. And we have to give a special shout out to Stephanie Vacker as she flew up all the way from Mexico City to Brownsville, Texas just to open up the expo. She's had an amazing year. Her last bout with Mercedes Moné at the New Japan Pro Wrestling card was great, and I'm expecting for her to have a huge year and really put the women's division of CMLL on the map. And I really appreciated that Rey Mendoza and the Villano family got a lot of love. They had a little corner dedicated to the Villano brothers. If you recall this epic photo of Pentagon Cero Miedo, Pentagon Jr., in his last Lucha de Apuestas match against Villano Cuatro, I just had to throw this picture up. It's so iconic. It reminds me of like Mortal Kombat or something. And shouts out to Mystico, or as many people know him, Sin Cara. If you thought the movie Tenet was confusing, look up the history of Mystico and that mask. And here's a photo of a packed Arena Mexico. Arena Mexico is an arena that CMLL have their Friday night shows in. And shameless plug, since this is my channel, a tourist guide to your first Lucha Libre match in Arena Mexico. Click on the link. As mentioned in the beginning of this video, we are in the border of Texas and Mexico. So across from where I live is Matamoros, Mexico. I like this little portion of the exhibit that showcased the local luchadors that are from Matamoros, Mexico.
Fucking sweat my balls off!
I really enjoyed this part of the exhibit, the golden age of Mexican wrestling, which was from 1950 to 1969. What made it the golden era? Well, these luchadors were featured on comic books, TV sitcoms, movies. These guys were legit heroes. Now, the big difference from the heroes that we were used to in the US, you could see your hero live in person. Picture this, you're a 10-year-old kid, you're reading your favorite comic book that featured El Santo or Blue Demon. That same weekend, you could see El Santo or Blue Demon at your local arena at the Sunday Lucha Show. And this time period was the peak of that. And that's why it's considered the golden era of Lucha Libre. Also, if you get a chance, YouTube Misterio en las Bermudas. It was a film back in the 1970s that was filmed on location here in Brownsville, Texas and South Padre Island. And this was my favorite part of the exhibit, ring-worn used masks throughout the years. As you can see, you had masks like El Santo, the original, Black Shadow, who was Blue Demon's tag partner, just iconic names. And keep in mind, these are all ring-worn used masks. As a mask collector, I was in heaven. And be sure to leave a like and a comment if you recognize any of these masks. And let me know, what are some of your best memories with these masks? I hated this guy as a kid. Always freaked me out. I also love that the three pillars, El Santo, Blue Demon, and Mil Máscaras, all got shoutouts at this expo. They were all iconic and huge for the sport. And this display had some of his most prized possessions. It had an original Mil Máscaras mask, an original El Santo mask, an original Médico Asesino mask, who isn't the most popular name, but one of the first stars of Lucha Libre. He was a heavyweight. There was also this original championship belt from the 1930s and this original Espectro mask. Keep in mind, I think the masks were all from the 1950s. A lot of history just in this one display box. So there you have it. What did you think? What were your favorite parts of the exhibit? And comment down below, what are some of your all-time favorite masks and best lucha memories? Be sure to give a follow to Christian Cymet, that's CCYMET. And also, if you're curious to learn more about Lucha Libre or want to get more involved in the Lucha Libre world, please give a follow to some of my favorite Twitter accounts and podcasts. So be sure to follow Club Lucha on TikTok, as well as follow their podcasts on all streaming services. Be sure to check out the LuchaCentral podcast. And last but definitely not least, for anything involving the world of Lucha Libre, follow Lucha Blog on Twitter. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video, and this has been another episode of Red Card Lucha.